welcome everybody. Welcome back. We're gonna move on to the last part of our Culminating experience presentations. I want to remind everybody that this evening, in this stage, all the students that have been presented will also perform at 7 o'clock. I hope you all can come. And the first person of the afternoon is pianist Agneiska Derlak. Please welcome her with a warm applause. Aga is a Polish pianist and composer, leading an award-winning trio since 2013. In addition to performing at several Polish and European jazz festivals, she has taken the stage at several others, including the Panama Jazz Festival, Alternativa Jazz in Mallorca, Jazz in Chisinau, Moldavia, Ankara Jazz, Berlin 2017 in Germany, Edinburgh Jazz and Blues in UK, Athens Technopolis in Greece. First Thought, the debut album of the Agneiska Derlak Trio, won the 2016 Friedrich Award for Best Jazz Debut granted by Poland Phonographic Academy. The Agneiska Derlak Trio released their second album, Healing, in 2017. Her advisor is Bruno Raber. And I don't know if he arrived, the committee member is Dave Limina, chair of the piano department, is running a little late, but we start anyway. Agneiska Derlak.
Thank you so much, Marco, for this introduction. And thank you. At the beginning, I want to thank Danila and Marco for this whole year of adventurous education. The topic I would like to talk about today is Polish culture as a means of preserving nationality and identity during the partition between 1795 and 1918. Why did I pick this particular subject? First of all, it was a very special and important part of Polish history that shaped for good our culture, our mentality, and our future. And me, as a Polish, I found it crucial in order to deepen my knowledge about this subject. But what is even more important? All this year at BGGI, we've been discussing how we, through our art, can contribute to change in the society. And at the beginning, this idea was kind of overwhelming. But to be honest, I didn't have to look far to find the proof of its truthfulness. As a matter of fact, my project is about telling a story how artists and intellectuals in Poland directly contributed to a social change, and to be more precise, they directly contributed to regaining our independence. Let me put my story in historical context. So, between 1795 and 1918, Poland ceased to exist. It was partitioned by Prussia, Russia, and Austria. As a result of that, Poland was off the map for over 100 years. There were many reasons of this. First of all, we had military, economical crisis, corruption, inability to implement reforms, control of Tsarina Catherine over Polish politics. But let's go even deeper, because the main reason of partition lies deeply in the heart of the nation. First of all, we struggled social division between nobility and peasantry. Peasantry didn't really have any sense of belonging to the nation, and nobility and aristocracy were mostly involved in unfaithful deals with our future occupants. What's more, we had elective monarchy since 16th century. So over 200 years, our kings were elected by a group of people. Sometimes they were also elected as a result of corruption. Sometimes they weren't even Polish. So to conclude, we can say that the main problem that Poland struggled was the crisis of the spirit, crisis of national identity, lack of sense of belonging to the nation. After the partition, our occupants knew very well that nation is not something determined and defined only by geographical boundaries, but it's more, it's culture. And by culture, I mean language, history, and art. So what did they do? They tried to eliminate every trace of Polish culture. They tried to supersede Polish language and eliminate Polish Catholic Church, which was the last thing akin to Polish cultural and political center at the time. And at this point, at the moment of lack of hope, of regaining our independence and nationality, the revival among artists occurred because they felt responsible for restoring national values by fostering our cultural heritage. At this point of my research, I posed myself a question which shaped my compositional part of my project. The question is, how would my artistic work be like if I was one of those artists fighting for their identity, national independence, social and political change? I would like to present two tunes that are attempts to answer those questions. Thank you. So the main objectives while composing this tune were, I wanted to relate to early Romanticism, sentimentalism movement. I wanted to create lyrical, nostalgic melodies inspired by Chopin and Szymanowski. I wanted to reflect the feeling of longing, hope, and I wanted to convey a motivating and energizing message using Afro-Cuban free-form rhythm and collective solo part later on in this tune. The next tune I wanted to present is Things I Will Never Have, and it will be coda of this tune. The objectives were similar. Again, I wanted to relate to sentimentalism movement. I wanted to create lyrical melodies with this typical for Poland nostalgia and reflect the feeling of longing. Okay, so what else could artists and intellectuals do besides composing music and conveying the message of hope and patriotism? They realized that the power of change is interconnectivity of art, philosophy, demagogy, sociology, psychology. During my research, I discovered that even the great philosopher of the Enlightenment, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, was involved in Polish matter. Polish writer and diplomat Michał Wiercholski asked him for help, asked him to write his ideas and suggestions how we can restore Polish values. So Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote an essay called Considerations on the Government of Poland. And I want to read two quotations. There will never be a good and solid constitution unless the law reigns over the hearts of the citizens. But how can heart be reached? This is a question to our law reformers who never look beyond coercion and punishment. It is education that must give souls a national formation and direct their opinions and taste in such a way that they will be patriotic by inclination, by passion, and necessity. So we can see that Jean-Jacques Rousseau emphasized a huge role of love for the nation and feeling the sense of belonging in order to create a strong country. He suggested educational groundwork. It was a movement originated by Polish artists and intellectuals. The main objective of this movement was education of new Polish generations, creating Polish schools, development of science, popularization of Polish history, establishing Polish cultural and science associations, attempts of restoration of Polish architecture, the work of Polish artists who popularized Polish values and tradition through their work. So how did artists fight for restoring our values? First of all, they included historical component in their work, folklore tradition. As a matter of fact, our folklore was collected and classified for the first time in 19th century by Oskar Kolberg. Folklore music inspired Chopin and Szymanowski, for example, to compose. Artists created children's songs book. They collaborated together through interconnectivity of Polish cultural heritage. They wanted to convey a message of patriotism, longing, encouragement, and some of them even engaged in politics. My interpretations. I studied music of the most important Polish composers. First of all, of course, Fryderyk Chopin. It's an obvious choice. As Wilhelm von Lenz said, a writer and his friend, he was the only political pianist Poland was in his compositions. His music was an expression for foreigners of the undefeated Polish spirit. I took a part of Fantasy F minor, part called Choral, which was created under the influence of the November Revolution. The next composer was Karol Szymanowski, also one of the most famous Polish composers. He was also a patriot and popularizer of Polish folklores. He used to use Mazurka, so Polish national dances, in order to create his music. I took a piece of his composition, Mazurka, opus 50th, number 4. Those two compositions inspired me to write my own, called Glands. The main objectives were deriving harmony from those tunes, using different textures, registers, pedal notes, in order to change colors. I wanted to experiment with double bass improvisation ad libitum over the unchanging groove of the drums. I also used a drum groove coming from Polish traditional music. It's my variation of oberek groove. I wanted also to use Szymanowski motifs from Mazurka in collective improvisation part, which I will present. And I also wanted to create a dynamic story, dynamic timeline through tranquility to chaos and back to tranquility. And the last piece I want to present is called Moveable Feast. I was inspired by Ignatian Paderewski's Symphony in B minor, Polonia, which as a matter of fact was created as a reaction to the January Revolution. The main objectives was to derive the harmony from the Paderewski composition, create lyrical melodies inspired by Polish composer, and create energizing and also motivating mood. At the end of my presentation, I wanted to acknowledge Ignatian Paderewski, who played a significant role in regaining Polish independence. And he is an extraordinary example of social activism through music. He was a well-renowned musician, performer. He was performing all over Europe and in the United States. And he used his music and his popularity in order to spread the word about Polish situation. As a matter of fact, he would start his performances with speech about Poland. When he was invited to the United States to play a series of concerts, he found his way to Woodrow Wilson. He connected with him, he established a relationship with him, and President of the United States, under the influence of this relationship, he helped Poland to include the 13th point in Treaty of Versailles, who, as we know, put the First World War to the end. And the 13th point of Treaty of Versailles said, Poland shall regain independence. What are my next steps? First of all, my goal is to keep exploring Polish classical music, keep composing, deriving from this music. I want to release an album with this material. In September, we are going to perform in This Is Jazz Club in New York as a part of Jazztopat, Polish Jazz Festival. And I'm going to perform this material with Global Jazz Institute alumni. I want to create a music history program for educational purposes, for example, concerts and lectures. And in general, I want to spread the mission that artists have in the society, and under the influence of this year at BGJI, I want to imply Berklee Global Jazz Institute objectives and attitudes in the education and my performance. And I wanted to thank Danilo Perez, Marco Pignataro, Bruno Raberg, Dave Limina, Carlos Sanz, my band, Alonso Dimitrios on trumpet, Luke Norris tenor, Fares Isaac Ney, Jacob Jezioro double bass, Connor Ken drums, Lee Storch, who was my recording engineer, and all Berklee Global Jazz Institute friends for inspiration and support. Thank you.
Agneiska Derlak, wonderful. Congratulations. And we have, as guest in the committee, chair of the piano department, Dave Limina. If you want to give some comment, feedback, anything that you would like to share, that would be useful to Aga.
Yeah, well, one thing, this is interesting. I've been to the Tatra Mountains, and we used to often go see a lot of Polish folk music. Mm-hmm. And I was immediately like, yes, that is exactly what I had experienced there, and hearing all those sounds, I could absolutely hear that in your composing. Yeah, really, really powerful. So it's interesting that I have actually, been there. So the establishment of the connection between the expression and the source, and Polish pride, Polish spirit, Polish identity is very, very, very evident there. So, congratulations on that. Yeah, excellent, excellent work. Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. Aga, I have to tell you, from the first presentation, this is, you in the class, you were the first one, so you really had no frame of reference, but this came together with such a powerful message, I think. It's so coherent from a point of view of your narrative, and musically speaking is really inspiring. I had no idea that you were working such a beautiful way to connect all of these things and maintain, I feel like you maintain such a jazz aesthetic, but with these beautiful influences, and I think it's not easy to do, and I think you achieve it really, really strongly. Also, your focus on what you intend to do now with this project, and so as a curiosity for me, because we receive more and more students from Poland, which seems to suggest that there's something happened there, which actually in Europe, Poland has been one of the first nations developing jazz. They had a really strong history for jazz in Europe that I'm aware of. My question is, do you think now this idea that you develop here at the Institute, this music, how do you feel, or how do you, first of all, are you planning to bring it to Poland as a thing? How do you feel like this will connect with the people there in terms of the aesthetic of the music and this way of presenting? Do you think this will be something that they will easily accept?
I think yes. I think jazz is very popular in Poland. Maybe not very like pop music, but it has a great scene, jazz scene in Poland. So I think it would be great, and this national component would also be great because Poland is a country that fosters our nationality and our national values a lot. So I think it will be good connection.
And do you plan to do something from also an educational point of view?
Yes, I was fortunate to be accepted for Danilo Perez Foundation in Panama. So what I hope for, and what I will attempt to do is to take those lessons and those objectives and this attitude, first of all, and transform it to the educational ground, hopefully with mentorship of Danila.
Wow, beautiful. Congratulations. Very
Thank
inspiring project.
Wow, really beautiful, man. Dynamic music. It was just so it spoke for itself. I was just floored by it, both it's an artistic level, but also in relationship to all the things that you're talking about. I had a question for you. How do you view the idea of identity with respect to preservation? Because you've talked a lot, I think, about in your project about the idea of preservation, right? Trying to, something has been lost maybe in this identity, it's been obscured by many years in history. And to me, the idea of a tradition is something that's always going, evolving, and it's very complicated, right? There's a lot of mix and a lot of commonalities between different groups of people. What do you feel about this with respect to your own music and how you go forward with this project?
I think that, as I said in my presentation, that nation is not only boundaries, but cultural is like essential element of the nation, and it's something that even determines the nation. So that's why I was talking about preserving those values, because I think that it was crucial in order to preserve also nationality. I just connected those two values very closely because I feel that they come together, to be honest. Can you repeat the second part of your question? Sorry.
Well, for me, one thing that struck me is that you have something to contribute as well. Not only that, this is not just a preservation, this is not just a musicology project, right? I mean, there's so much research and background you did, but you actually have a new voice that no one's heard before, that is incredible, that I think has something to push it even forward. So I'm curious how you feel about that.
Of course, so my project was not only to show our national values, it was also to express my own voice and express my own ideas. How did I perceived this political situations and cultural situations that was going on. So it was a combination of my own voice, my own ideas, my own sensibility, and historical and cultural context as well.
Yeah, that's great, and I encourage you continue down that path.
Okay.
Because like I was just thinking, like in my head, I was like, wow, like, you know, Grzegorz took a whole, his project was incredible and he did amazing stuff. Like I imagine, like what would happen if you guys linked up, right? What if you link up with these other, like there's something there to be said for the individuals, for you and all the people around you in your community and artists from all around the world, you know, at this institute. That's kind of what we talk about, to like push that boundary. So great, amazing.
Thank you so much.
Continue in the last one of the last question we asked about what's your call of duty, what is your purpose, and you stated very clear what you are bringing to the table musically and as a voice, your presentation, your style of speaking out. It's all becoming one thing. The passion you have and to transmit this message is powerful. So I side with what everybody said and what Chase just mentioned. You have a power. It's coming in the instrument too. It sounds fantastic. To see you grow this year and also as many of you can choose so many because you have so much to draw from, that you have chosen a path that is very unique to me and something that I find very, very valuable actually, because you're redefining the role of words and the use of piano for certain traditions. For example, the melancholy element and what we have to play, how we have to play a ballad, how do we have to, does the piano, when you want to play a certain European influence, you use certain harmonic, you draw from Chopin. Chopin is so beautiful, melodic, it's so heartful, not rhythm, but you know, it's so beautiful. There's a lot of this kind of like things that I've heard for years that kind of it keeps looking for separation more than integration, you know. And you have been able to unify your statement. I hear everything in it, aspirations of total humanity to become one. You know, it's drawn. It speaks to the brain. It speaks to the visceral aspect, to the legs. It's powerful. So I encourage you to continue. Now, saying that, I have to give you some thoughts. One of the things I'm missing, since you already found that, is also the storytelling. I'm still hearing a little bit of this thing that in jazz we have been carrying this about the A, and now we're on the bridge, and now there's a vamp, and we're gonna vamp in F minor for a long time until when you have those vamp like the last one. I would like you to think a little more in context of this project, which is about opportunity to exist in another dimension of the one that we already saw. For example, if an F minor vamp comes to me, does it have to sound minor? Does it have to sound, can we make a minor chord sounds major? So if we access the trigger point from the B flat and create a storytelling, like the way you did with that you end up in C major with an A flat on the bottom, and can we access the light of C major? So I don't know anymore. I'm an A flat major 7. It's not about. I'm feeling a little bit of contradiction here. I need you to push the boundary, and redefine those things you can do, and you are built to do this. And that might link to what he says. You know, if I find myself listening to his music that has connection with classical music, something about classical music that I love is the storytelling. I don't hear this A, B, A. I mean, you know what I mean? And the vamps, don't forget this word. Look at it as an opportunity to reinvent yourself, to build courage on it. Okay? I'm hearing the elements of fire, water, and earth. I am missing a little bit much of air. I need more airy. And by that to be concrete, so it doesn't, you know, I'm always talking sometimes very abstract, so you guys are like, okay, here's the crazy Danilo. But to be concrete, what I'm missing is this. When you hear music in a vertical way and you hear the rhythms, everybody playing, pa, pa, ta, 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 ta. I need to hear somebody slouching on me, like the 2 o'clock at night drinking wine. You know, when you create a rhythm, you always have somebody like the reggae, for example, is a great example. Like there's somebody that is almost out of context. That would help to create this sensation of freedom. Okay? So not everything doesn't come, there is a verticality rhythmically that I am digging, that I love. But I may want to rethink about some of this thing and maybe add more of the shuffle to some of this phrasing. So instead of going pa, 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 you want to da, you know, like, so, because there's so much potential in your music. You can, you know, I just put a little more air on it. Okay. And I think you're going to get something then.
Thank you so much.
Agneiska Derlak.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Wonderful. Thank you.